Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, Retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 5, the Universal Order. We are reading from chapter 5 at the moment. Lord Rishabha instructs his sons. And we'll continue from there. Ugam karoti vachalam pangum langhete girim yad kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Padmananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. So Lord Rishabha is instructing his sons, and we were reading, and when we finished yesterday, Rishabha had said that for a conditioned soul it is impossible to conceive of a spiritual body. Now, this was for a question which was like, is spirit not formless? Bharat, he had answered, and Rishabha was happy for the answers, and now we continue from there onwards. He then addressed Ilavarta seated before him. Dear child, you asked how to recognize a pure devotee from whom you should take guidance. Ilavarta looked at his father with tears in his eyes. Waves of bliss emanated from Rishabha, infusing everyone present with ineffable joy. Verse 20, Rishabha continued, Dear sons, you are born of my heart which is purely spiritual, and thus you are all spiritually inclined. Unlike materialists, none of you harbor envy in your hearts. So Lord Rishabha is telling his sons that all of them have been born of his heart. So, and the heart of Lord Rishabha is purely spiritual, and thus all of them are spiritually inclined, unlike the materialists who harbor envy in their hearts. Therefore, I tell you that your eldest brother Bharat is most exalted in devotional service. By serving him, you will automatically please me and render the best service to all living beings. Verses 21 to 22. All of you, including Bharat, should also pay attention to serving qualified Brahmins. Kushavarta raised a hand and said, Father, the Vedas recommend sacrifice to the gods in lowercase g, but not to the Brahmins. This is an excellent point, said Rishabha. Listen as I describe the universal hierarchy. In the material world, the least significant creation is dull matter, such as stones and earth. So he's explaining the universal hierarchy. Above that is any creature with life force such as vegetables, grass, trees and other plants. Superior to non-moving life forms are those which can move, such as insects, reptiles. Above these are animals with more developed intelligence, such as mammals. Humans are still most important. And superior to humans are spirits. Superior to them are the Gandharvas. Higher still are the Siddhas. Even better are the Kinnars. And superior to them are the demon races such as Daityas and Danavas. Superior to demon races are the gods. Best of whom is Indra, the king of heaven. Superior to Indra are Brahma's direct sons such as Daksha, and superior to them is Shiva. Brahma is still more important because he is Shiva's father. As the Supreme Person, I am even greater than Brahma, and because I am especially inclined to qualified Brahmins, they are even greater than me. So we can see that the Lord is not taking any credit here. Again, Lord is saying that the qualified Brahmins are even greater than himself. Many Brahmin sages stood to speak. The eldest said, Lord, who can be greater than you? We are your insignificant servants. Verse 23. Rishabha held up a hand. Most respectable Brahmins, no one is equal to or superior to you in this world. I do not find anyone who can compare to Brahmins. Those who properly understand my heart offer food to me at the end of any Vedic ritual by feeding the Brahmins. They know I relish this more than I when I am offered food through the sacrificial fire. The sages shed tears. How could they ever reciprocate Rishabha's great love for them? Bharat said, Father, hearing of the exalted position of Brahmins, unscrupulous men may imitate them. Kindly therefore explain how we can recognize a qualified Brahmin. Verse 24. This is an important point, replied Rishabha. Listen to the essential characteristics of a qualified Brahmin. He thoroughly studies the Vedas because they are my eternal sound incarnation in the material world. Brahmins are the Vedas personified because they properly understand and apply Vedic teachings. They always think and act in pure goodness. How can we recognize this? Asked Bharat. Rishabha said, they control their minds and seek to please Krishna rather than their own senses. They are truthful and never act or speak against Vedic injunctions, explaining their true meaning for the benefit of all conditioned souls, practicing penance and tolerance. They recognize how all beings depend on my mercy and that success in any endeavor can only come when I am pleased. These qualities make them superior to everyone. Verse 25, let me tell you another reason I consider the Brahmins to be the best. Although I am fully opulent and almighty, superior to even Indra and Brahma, and can bestow any benediction, including elevation to heaven or even liberation, the Brahmins never ask me for anything material. Pure in heart, they only desire my devotional service and never seek material benefits from anyone. Rishabha glanced over at his 100 sons, sitting respectfully before him. They now knew they should serve Bharat and the Brahmins, but to succeed in life, they needed to know more. Verse 26, he said, my dear sons, there are two more important instructions you should heed. First, do not envy or harm any living beings. Any living entity, moving or non-moving. I am the super soul in all living beings, and thus you should respect everyone. By doing this, you respect me, which brings me to my last point. There are three types of senses. Knowledge acquiring, active, and internal. The proper function of them all is to engage in my service, otherwise you cannot become free from illusion and will remain bound by the ropes of birth and death. Shukadev had been speaking continuously for over 24 hours. He paused and stretched his back. Parikshit and the assembled sages also loosened their bodies. Night had set in, and the great canopy of stars and crescent moon shed a little light on the vast assembly. As it settled down again to hear Shukadev speak, the river rippled gently by and a lone owl hooted in the distance. Parikshit folded his palms and said, Master, what did Rishabha do after instructing his sons? Verses 28 to 29, Shukadev said, the great well-wisher of everyone, Lord Rishabha, after showing his example how a father should teach his sons, prepared to retire. Actually, Rishabha's sons were all highly cultured and learned and hardly needed teaching. Why did he instruct them? Asked Parikshit. Shukadev glanced around his audience. There were many ascetics present who, though advanced in knowledge, had not yet attained perfection. On the pretext of instructing his sons, Rishabha taught them. I see. Tell me what happened next. As you know, Rishabha installed his eldest son Bharat, a highly advanced devotee, as ruler of the world. Thereafter, Rishabha remained at home for some time, although he desisted from worldly activities, thinking always of Krishna. He was oblivious to the external world, naked, his hair disheveled. He appeared like a madman. In time, he left home and wandered the earth like a phantom. A moving stone or a blind and deaf mute, although frequently abused and insulted, he remained silent and unaffected. So this was the eldest son of Rishabdev. Verse 30, he walked through towns, villages, industrial areas, woods, valleys, hills, hermitages and gardens. Thinking he was mad, low-class, vicious people surrounded him like flies around an elephant, threatening, beating, urinating and spitting on him. Some threw stones, stool and dust at him, and others would pass foul air near him, but he was undisturbed. He was transcendental and unaffected by material pains. Traveling the world alone, he never became angry at anyone. Verse 31, although covered with dust and grime, his tall body appeared attractive. With long, well-formed limbs, he had fine features and reddish lotus petal eyes that were pleasing to see. He was so beautiful that even married women felt attracted to him. When he smiled, their hearts pierced by Cupid's arrows. Because he was unwashed and unkempt, his thick curly matted hair fell in a disheveled mess about his face. He seemed like one haunted by a ghost as he moved randomly about. Verses 32 to 34, when he saw people were agonistic toward his practice of mystic yoga, he accepted the Python vow, laying down in one place and remaining there for many months, rolling in his own feces and urine so that others would not bother him. Because of his divinity, no unpleasant aroma emanated from his body. Indeed, he filled the surrounding countrysides for many miles around with the fragrances of lotuses. To avoid the attention of animalistic men, he imitated the behavior of cows, deers and crows, sometimes walking about the countryside and at other times sitting or lying down in one place. Verse 35, for the benefit of the mystic yogis, he perfectly demonstrated the yogic practices. He was the Supreme Lord who could award liberation, but in the mood of Krishna's devotee, he exhibited the transcendental ecstasies of prema, such as crying, laughing and shivering. All the mystics siddhis automatically manifested in him, but he showed no interest in them. So with this, we conclude our 5th chapter. We will begin chapter 6 next time, Rishabha's disappearance. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.